All right, folks, this is the canoe that I own right now. I've been using this style canoe. I love it. My friends love it that paddle with me. It's very stable. The seats here are contoured. They have like a nice roundness to them. The actual back spreads out a bit so that you have more room. These here, you can sit in them all day and I find I'm not getting sore from them. You have your thwart in the center that is giving rigidity to the front. So this canoe is 17 feet long. And because it's 17 feet long, it has 2 thwarts and a yoke to give good rigidity through the length of the boat. As we were talking about earlier, we have the gunnels. These gunnels are a carbon Kevlar blend, and they are molded right in to the hull in the mold process. They're not added after like on my other boat. The interior of this you might think looks a little different. Well, that's because it has a Kevlar, base salt, and polypropylene and Niagara fiber. That's all blended together to give you this beautiful grayish brown look. I like to say that it kind of looks like there is almost burlap inside. Some of my friends have said it looks carpeted from a distance. It doesn't feel any different. The design of this canoe is so that it is light. So this one is 2 feet longer than my other one, and it is the same weight, if not a little lighter. I'll show you here. I can grab it by the yoke and you can pick it up, no problem at all. This one has 3 seats. Now why I put 3 seats in it was with my 2 kids, they now have a place to sit because they're little at the moment in the middle. And down the road, if I want to take both of them out into a backcountry trip with me, then they have their own spots. It's just more versatile. It is longer, so I have to be a little more cautious in river systems with it. But there's no keel on this one. I'll show you that in a second. The air tanks at the ends are a little smaller, and that's okay. It gives you a little extra packing room. This one has a higher capacity due to the length and the width. I'll put that up on the screen. And the middle seat actually has a dual purpose. The middle seat is referred to when you buy it as a solo seat. And why that is because with that thwart there, this canoe would be very difficult to paddle backwards, like I had mentioned with the other one. So this is where you can sit in solo and you can go out, and it's designed so that the balance of the canoe is good when you're out by yourself. Because a guy like me, I'm a little heavier, and if I just sit in the back, the whole front of the canoe lifts up quite high. And this is actually a very comfortable seat as well. There is what you call tumble home happening on this. So the hull actually sweeps back in at the top, and I like that. It makes the width at the top narrower. This is good because I can lay my packs in here, scooch them up in, and everything's contained, and I like that. Functionally, does it make a difference? I don't know. It does help with the water. The water washes off the side better. I like the look of it. This canoe at the gunnels is 34 inches wide. But down here, right where it begins to tumble home, is actually the widest point of the beam, like we had talked about on that canoe. And it is 36 inches wide at the widest point. Now you might be thinking, well, Dave, that other canoe was wider. But at the water line, this one's actually wider than that canoe, which adds a lot of stability. So those are things you gotta look for, because when you're paddling, you don't paddle with the water way up here. Not unless you've overloaded it a lot, and then I'd be worried about sinking it. Typically on this canoe, my water line runs right where this two-tone break is. And at that point, the more hull you have in the water, the more stable it's gonna be. However, the drawback is the more hull that you have in the water, the more resistance you have while paddling, and that will slow you down. This one does very well because of the shape. We can keep up with our friends, no problem. I took my son out for a backcountry trip with the father-son trip I do, and he sat in the front, I sat in the solo seat, was balanced well. We went in 17 kilometers to our campsite, and it was on Burn Island Lake, and it was a great trip. We had no issues keeping up, and it was basically soloing with a bit of extra weight. So my son, he helped, but he wasn't able to do too much, and it handled well. I wouldn't complain about it at all. Easy to portage with the lightweight aspect, comfortable. The only downside, again, and that's is the 17 feet. When you're portaging, you really got to be cautious that you're not banging it into things as you go. Not that it should hurt it, but you just never know, right? Okay, so down here you're gonna notice there's no keel. This is a flat bottom boat. That has huge pluses in control in tight areas. So where I lack some of the maneuverability with the length, I make up for it with no keel. However, I have noticed when you're out on big lakes, you do feel the lack of a keel, in that it'll start to move around on you if you stop paddling. Hey guys, so I was talking to you about having no keel on this Swift, and for soloing, that does create a problem. However, I think I've kind of come up with a solution. I've taken a big water jug, as you can see up there, and put it in the front just to center the balance out for my weight, and it has been tracking way better because of that. So that's something to think about. And if you want to do a bunch of soloing, I would just recommend putting your pack up there. If you're going on a long trip or whatever, then you got it covered, right? You don't have to worry about it. But soloing with no pack, throw a water jug up there, or a kid or a dog or something, just to set the weight down in the front a bit, and then you will track way better. So that is a solution to that. I have purchased this with the two-tone, the champagne bottom, that it won't show the scratches nearly as much. It is a little more money, adds a little bit of weight, but again, I think in the long run, if you want a nice looking boat for a nice long time, this does wonders. So right here are the decks of this canoe, and this is the carbon fiber decks. I've attached a small GoPro attachment so that I can put my GoPro here and catch myself on portages or just out on the lake too. As you probably saw in one of my last videos, I used it on the portage and it worked well. You never try to lift a canoe from these points. They're not designed for that. They'll just crack, you'll lose it. These are your handles. Make sure you use them. Again, not with a loaded boat, because you will wreck them, but that's what they're there for. These are also where you'll tie your painter lines to. A painter line is just a rope attached to here. Typically, I like a good 20 feet on each end, and that way if you're in fast water in a river, you can have a guy at each end, and you can line the canoe down the river comfortably and safely. You won't have the chance of losing all your gear and all that. The other good use of having painter lines are if you're stopping somewhere and you don't want to pull your canoe right up onto the shore, you can tie off. Good for that. Even if you want to throw, a rock or something on your painter line, you can use it as an anchor